Welcome to Beyond the Closing Table. I'm your host, Michael Martin, and I'm here to interview top producing real estate agents, top producing mortgage lenders, and business owners. I am so excited to have my new guest, Mr. Matthew Griffiths here. And do you go by Matthew or Matt?
Matt.
I thought so. So super happy to have you, Matt. We got introduced actually by one of my other podcast guests, Miss Ash Quinn. So glad she kind of put us together. You and I have met now a few times. You are a financial advisor, but you look at things in an entirely different way, I think, than most financial advisors do. And I found that out, first of all, by Ashley telling me a little bit about how you work. But that couldn't begin to scratch the surface of really our first conversation that we had. I think we did via Zoom.
Yes.
And then, of course, we met for lunch afterward with your partner. So very excited to have you here on our podcast. I want to talk about something first that kind of like one of the questions I asked you when we first met was, how did you get involved in this? And so you spent 6 years in the Army. Is that right?
Correct.
Yep. And so what inspired your transition to financial services from the Army? I know it's a really interesting story.
Yeah. So what's interesting, I'm kind of dating myself a little bit. I would call myself like a shell answer man. So those commercials back then where somebody always had all the answers. People would come to me and ask me all kinds of questions. And I love helping people. I'm very curious by nature. So when they ask me questions, of course, as a leader, the most important thing is I want to help them out and get them answers. Well, as you're probably not surprised, but the number one topic always revolved around money.
Sure.
And so in the military, what's very interesting, I was field artillery, and so it's all male. At the time it was, it's now changed. But you would move around every 18 months in the military. So you can imagine that the women had a hard time keeping consistent jobs. So that impacted cash flow and goals and everything else. So they would constantly be asking me, is there just a better way? Right? That was kind of the biggest thing. Is there a better way? And being with my curious nature, I would want to find a better way for them. And it was everything from budgeting to purchasing cars to houses. But the biggest thing became tax. So tax became a really, really important thing. And they didn't really have opportunities to have relationships with CPAs. It was all the little off-post, quick little mom and pop, liberty tax type thing.
Sure.
And they don't think strategically. No offense to any CPA or any accountant out there. God love them for not thinking strategically, right? The IRS really appreciates that. So it's very black and white. And in field artillery and as a leader, you have to think strategically. It's like the most important thing. So I combined those two disciplines, and yes, I would be briefing everybody in the battalion and brigade on financial advising stuff. And I wasn't even licensed yet.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, what made you have that knowledge at that point in your life?
Yeah, so when I like helping people, I'm self-taught. So as we all kind of know, financial planning, advising stuff is not taught in schools or colleges. I mean, even in your master's program, they don't teach you all this stuff. So the interesting thing is I had to self-teach based on situations because in the military, there's so many different types of people. It's amazing. Every walk of life you could possibly imagine, from very wealthy people to very not so wealthy people. And they did everything different. So the cool thing was I loved that. I love difference. And then I was curious. So you combine those two things, curiosity and the desire to help folks. And then I would dig into whatever they were doing and then help it make more efficient. Because again, military, if you're not efficient, it causes a lot of problems. Don't want to definitely get off on that tangent, but efficiency is key.
So I'm curious, you're just making me think of another question, like why, as you're going through that, right? If you're self-taught, then you're also learning along the way, right? Were you ever afraid of giving people bad advice because you didn't know what you didn't know yet?
Yeah, so great question. I'm very alpha. And so to me, that means perfectionist in a lot of circles. So I did my homework.
Okay.
So depending on what they were asking, I would dig in sometimes 100 times deeper than necessary. That's just how I rolled.
Got it. Very, very good. So you said, you said you have a different way of thinking about money. What does that mean to you specifically? Because you and I have talked about this again at lunch, and it was really, really interesting to hear your aspect. But I'd love you to share that with the audience. Like, what does that mean? A different way of thinking about money?
Yeah, so a lot of people, the basic premise is you earn money and then you spend it, right? So everybody thinks that way. I don't. So I think more like an accountant does. So for example, net of tax. That's something I say all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that truly means is when you earn a dollar, you don't get to spend the dollar. So you're already in the hole. So if I paid, let's say, 30 cents in tax, and there's three taxes, federal, state, and the invisible one called inflation, and you actually look at what your dollar could buy, it winds up being about 60 cents
Okay.
for the average person. So that's horrible. So you're already 40 cents in the hole. So in some way, shape, or form, my job is to get you out of the hole. So how do I make you 40 cents and then get the philosophy to get to $1.10, $1.20, where you're actually ahead of the game? So if you actually think about that, if the market were to earn 10%, you just earned 10% on $100 is $10.
Yep.
But you're actually only spending 60 of it. So I only moved you from $60 to $70, and you're in 10% on the market. So think about how many years it would take you just before you break even. And so that's if you think that way.
Well, probably never, right? Because you would do the inflation piece of it and all these other factors.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So during COVID, pure definition of inflation, too much money chasing too few goods, that's inflation. So during that period of time, it was 8, 9%. And I don't look at inflation that the news talks about. What you have to do is look at something called the Consumer Price Index. So everybody heard recently about the price of eggs. That is part of the Consumer Price Index, or goods and services, the fuel you put in your car, the electricity you use to run all this equipment in here. All of those things are dynamic. When you add that up, that's a very big detriment to that net of tax, inflation, spending. Because remember, tax is 3 components. And inflation, the most thing that erodes your wealth. So if you think that way, where you actually are starting from, you're starting in the hole. And that's so important to think about because, again, everything you should be doing in financial planning is getting yourself out of the red, which is in the hole, to the black, which is even, and then into the green. And they don't teach that, and they don't talk about that anywhere. As a matter of fact, every time I get asked that question with the response of net of tax, people tell me I should write a book. Because if you actually look at that, it'll blow your mind.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's not taught?
Yeah, because I think it's a little confusing to people. It's out of the box thinking. So like I've been a registered investment advisor, financial advisor for almost 30 years. And all the stuff they teach you is just pretty basic blocking and tackling, time value of money, stocks, alpha, betas, R squareds, all this technical mumbo jumbo the clients never need. But when you get into the applicable application of it, it crosses over into accounting and some psychology too. So I've had some great discussions, I'll put that in air quotes, with folks that say, well, I don't really understand that because that's not how the system really works. For example, with taxes, you get taxes withheld from your paycheck. So it's like, okay, so at the end of the year, I've paid my tax. Well, no, you've actually given the government an interest-free loan all year because you could choose not to have anything withheld. But so people aren't taught how.
There's nothing illegal to do with that, is there?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. You can claim married at 14 or have 0 tax withheld. Perfectly fine. Now, businesses are different. So this is personal.
Sure.
But the point is,
if you're a W-2 employee.
Yeah. So you get your W-2 at the end of whatever, January. They've already withheld tax for a year. Most people don't file until April and get their check back to June. That's 18 months that the government's had your money. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So if you learn how to hack those little things, it's great.
Well, if you even just put, I'm just thinking right immediately what you said. If you just took let's call it 30% of your income that's going out of there, right? Like that, you just put that into some sort of interest-bearing account for that period of time, then it could pay a portion of the tax for you at the end of the year when you have to pay your taxes.
Yeah.
Right.
Even $50 a month at about 8% for 30 years is hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
$50.
Yeah.
And how much of us just kind of waste $50 every
Sure.
month? And most of us have more than $50 withheld from our paycheck. So
Yeah.
you start compounding that over 30 years, it's $400,000 for every $50.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So again, that's a different way of thinking.
So you tell me like I should go get my employer to stop withholding my taxes immediately, put that somewhere in the savings account for myself, and if nothing else, to allow myself to be able to pay the tax when I have to. But of course, maybe someone like you and a CPA or something could help me understand how I might not even be able to pay much of the tax that I was paying to begin with.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's one of the services I like to do is in the fourth quarter of each year, reconciliation before your accountant closes out the books, if you have one, or before you are getting ready to send your data to the CPA to process. It's very important to talk with somebody like me that understands that net of tax to help you plan. Because there's another really key component to this, and it's discipline. Most people lack that.
Sure.
So in various forms, me too. So it's very important that you have somebody that can hold you accountable, because if you're getting that extra couple $100 in your paycheck each month, what do people do? Oh, I got more money to spend. Problem.
Yeah.
So there's a balance between that. There's a lot of psychology.
Well, I was thinking immediately to have it automatically withdrawn, put into somewhere else, so it's saving it for that, right?
100%.
Same thing that business owners should be doing for their quarterly taxes. Make sure every time, especially real estate agents, right? A lot of people that watch this are real estate agents, and they'll have great commission checks and then have expenses there, and if they're not putting that money away for their quarterly taxes, next thing you know, they're facing a problem for sure.
Yeah. And that opens up a whole nother can of worms.
Sure.
So if we had time, I would definitely get into that, but I know we're limited.
Yeah. Is there anything else? Because I know, and you mentioned this briefly, but maybe to get into it a little bit more about the psychology piece of it, because that's a big part of how you think about money, is realizing, understanding that money is very emotional for people.
Yeah. I could spend an hour just on this topic alone. So I actually do have a full-time psychologist on my team. Now, to be fair, he mostly helps with business succession. So just super quick on that topic, just somebody that's had a business for 30, 40, 50 years, and it's very emotional to them. It's their baby, right? So they are very protective of it. How do you ask somebody to give that up? And when I say give that up, it could be sell, it could be donate to charity. They just don't want to leave. So you can imagine there's a lot of power in letting go. So my psychologist spends a lot of time with people about that transition, where you hear in popular news, basically every day is a Saturday when you retire. And so there is a big mindset. So like if you're type A and now you're asked to sit around on a beach all day, it's not going to happen.
No.
So how do you help somebody let go and then transition about how they think about money and providing for their family? So it's a lot of planning, a lot of individual psychological analysis of a person. So from personalities to actually how they do things in their life. So my psychologist, he spends a lot of time with that. That's the obvious one. Some of the smaller things are generational communication gaps, for example. So you own your business and you have a son or daughter that may want to take it over. Think about all the communication apps and the technology and AI that you and I did not grow up with, right, that they have at their disposal. So they're going to think a little differently than you are. And so that's ridiculously important. Even outside of businesses, husbands, wives, partners communicate differently because opposites attract, right? So you usually have two very different power dynamics when it comes to money, a spender or a saver. And what's the number one cause of divorce? It's not infidelity, it's money.
Money and communication.
Exactly right. And so psychologists are just communication experts. So we figure out where those communication gaps are. And we even go in so far as when, for example, a couple or a business, let's say a father and a daughter, They come in and we have them draw out pictures. My psychologist and I, we put an 11 by 17 piece of paper in front of them with a box of crayons. And the only guidance we give them is draw the state of the business today. There was a couple, draw the state of the relationship today in regards to finance.
Yeah.
And the fascinating thing is some of these pictures that come out are hysterical. And it's like one, for example, my favorite one is a business owner. It's about a $200 million oil and gas business. The dad, so you see this airplane that's on fire, and you see these people in the windows like screaming and waving their hands. The plane's going down, and it's crashing into a mountain. Dad's got this big grin on his face as he's parachuting out of the plane while everybody else is going to get killed. That's an example. I have hundreds of drawings.
So that's the way Dad drew it?
That's the way Dad drew it.
Dad's like, peace out.
Yeah,
I'm gone.
that's what he's saying.
I got my
not
parachute.
my problem anymore.
That's right.
Good luck.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty interesting.
So I get a lot of that.
Yeah, what did the sun's picture look like?
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's cool. One of the things you said a minute ago kind of reminded me too, again, I'm in the real estate world so much. People that want to go sell their houses, that have been in their houses for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. They've raised their kids. They've had their grandkids there. Like them giving up that house is such an emotional piece. And they want, it's interesting that they care so much about the next potential owner of that home.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And, in my neighborhood, there's a lot of homes that are being scraped. Right. I mean, you'll have a beautiful, 1970s ranch home, or, of course, and we have a lot of these split levels, split foyers, whatever, in the neighborhood in Northridge. And, a lot of these sellers want their home to be taken over by somebody who's going to love their house like they did. And the reality is, who the hell really cares?
Right.
You're out. It doesn't matter anymore.
We still drive by.
That's right.
The problem.
That's true. I guess that's part of it. But it's not yours anymore, so it doesn't really matter, right? And so I can imagine. I'm wondering now too if it would help real estate agents that are dealing with those types of clients to have a psychologist involved with them in their conversations with those clients. How it would be helpful. Real estate agents very much have to become a psychologist in those situations anyway, right? They have to have some of that caring and loving and understanding of whatever that person's going through. Probably any salesperson has to deal with.
I was going to say, I feel the same way.
Yeah, sure.
I feel like a marriage counselor half the time because they'll start arguing right in front of me. Pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But again, I've had 2 psychologists on my team over the years, and they've taught me some really, really good.
How do you interview for that position? Don't give me a giant long answer,
Sure.
but I'm really curious. Like, how do you go about that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because I like people moving away from W-2 things, right? So I'm very entrepreneurial.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm talking to a psychologist, and some of them have an entrepreneurial bone, some don't. Most of them get bored. I'm just being honest, right? Because it's the same type of clients,
Sure.
the same type of excuses or details on things. So this is something new and exciting that takes exactly what they've been trained for in a totally different direction. So my current one, for example, he focuses mostly on leadership, but he never knew that this was a possibility.
Well, think about the show Billions, right?
Yeah.
They literally had a psychologist in the office to help these sales guys get over their crap so they could start selling more.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
big time.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And he's helped us with those kind of things too.
Yeah.
So that imposter syndrome that all salespeople go through, ridiculously important. I have him teach on that.
Wow.
You start talking about 5 dysfunctions of a team, or you start talking about personality types and how they merge together. Yeah, it's very important. So when you go talk to somebody that's opposite your personality, we actually have little poster cards on our office windows.
Uh-huh.
So before you walk into my office, it gives my top 5 strengths, so which are all action-based. So when you're talking to me, you have to focus on action-based stuff. Otherwise, you lose me.
I just wanted to take a quick second and say thank you so much for watching our podcast so far. If you do me a huge favor before you forget about it, to like, subscribe, and if you would, just leave a quick comment about what you think of the podcast. And if you want to share it with your friends, I'd love that too. Thanks again so much. We'll finish up right now.
And when you understand, you nailed it before, it's all about communication. And so there are these just really 4 communication styles that if you understand those things, you can basically figure anybody out. And especially isn't so much, everybody knows the golden rule, do unto others kind of thing. That's not the way it works.
Sure.
It's the platinum rule. It's do unto others as they want to be done unto.
Mm-hmm.
So you first have to understand, well, what do they like?
Sure.
And so that's why we have these posters up. So when you walk into my office, it's effective and efficient communication to know that I've got 5 strengths that are all action-based. My wife likes to joke that I don't have any thinking talents in my top 5. Not true, but it is true when you look at the results.
That's interesting.
But, yeah.
Now, was that from some sort of like Strength Finders
Yeah,
or something like that?
Strength Finders.
Okay,
Yes,
got
correct.
it.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah, we have not done that one. There's a few of them out there that are pretty interesting to go through. Cool. So your team talks about starting at the kitchen table. Tell me what that means.
Yeah, so we work mostly with business owners, and most of us, when we start out in sales, we're usually at somebody's kitchen table. Like when I first started a long time ago, how we prospected was going door to door. I actually used to sell Cutco knives a long time ago.
No kidding.
So that's what you usually learn to do. And so you're always invited to the kitchen table to break bread. So that's really important. Most businesses, if you look at like Microsoft, they started with a pair of sawhorses in a garage, but it's a table.
Sure.
So all kinds of different tables. So that's our theme. And so when we're sitting around the table to discuss things, we always bring people back to the genesis of why they started. The why is the most important thing. So when we ask them, why do this? Why not be an astronaut? Why not be whatever, an AI programmer? So when you understand the why, it helps us significantly easier to craft the financial plan over their lifetime. Because that's psychology again.
Is there a theme that you find in whys?
That's a really another good question. It's 2 parts. So the why typically revolves around money in some way, betterment, which we live in a capitalistic society, so everybody talks about money. I want to make more money. Why? So I can have more fun, more time, more freedom, more whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not really what it's about.
So there's another level there.
There is. And this is where my psychologist came in too, and some of the things that I've self-taught. It really comes to self-actualization. I'm not going to go through that whole thing. That would take an hour. But you ask what questions. So I quickly learned to move away from why questions, and what questions are notoriously difficult. You don't think that way. If you think about ever since you were a kid, you never got asked the what question.
So give us an example.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to dig into it. When you walk into a store, like we all do, what's typically the first question you get asked?
Of course, it's what can we help you with? Or do you need any help?
Yeah, right. And usually it's like, how's your day, or welcome, or something. So they really don't care unless they ask a what question. What are you looking for?
Mm-hmm.
So I ask it a little differently when I'm first sitting down with a potential client or business owner. And I'm asking, because they always say money, right? That's typically.
Well, you're a financial advisor, so.
Right, yeah. And you would think, yeah, natural. So my first question to them is, what's important about money to you? And the phraseology of that question is redonkulously important. What's important about money to you? So if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's a level 1 question.
Okay.
So if somebody were to answer it, they're like, well, so I can eat, put food on the table,
Sure.
Put a roof over my head. Great. So then
what's important about that?
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you do. And you say, so what's important about putting, food on the table? You're going to start to get a story.
When I was a kid, my parents struggled to put food on the table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now you're starting to get where their mindset is. And you just keep asking that.
Mm-hmm.
So to your point, my parents struggled to put food on. What's important about your parents struggling?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to struggle. What's important about not struggling?
Yeah.
Because I want to provide for my kids. What's important about... So I don't want it to sound like the Grand Inquisition. It's more, conversational. But at the end of the day, you really are trying to get to that self-actualization part. So for example, if you went up this chain, you'd probably have to ask me 10 times, 10 different what level questions. Mm-hmm. And you get to the root of it. It's like, man, when I meet my maker, And he asked me, like, what was important about your time on earth? It's like, I just want to thank you for, living a kick-ass life. I mean, whatever that statement is for you, now you can go back and peel it through generations all the way back to today. That's their motivation. The intrinsic motivation of somebody is what they're really trying to get to. And it's different for everybody. That's why I love what I do. Every answer is different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to pick a common theme other than to say, I want to get them to self-actualize. I want them to see it. So an example of a client I just had, her family came from nothing. She brought herself up from nothing. She sees her as the steward of the entire family. Her mission, she actually has a family mission statement, which I'm big on. And her family mission statement after going through this exercise was to empower, not enable. That's it. So her value proposition was to empower, not enable. And of course, you know what I ask her. So what does empowerment mean to you? Because I'm not going to focus on the enabling thing. We all get that.
Mm-hmm.
And then she started telling me about how she buys these houses for her family, what she does, where she wants to go, which lead me to generational wealth. So now I've got a mission. I didn't ask her, tell her what I did. I asked her questions and I said, well, now I think we're getting somewhere. It isn't make me more money. It's to make sure I can create generational wealth to empower every generation subsequent to her, not enable it by handing them a bunch of money. So what's cool is, yeah, we talk about stocks, bonds, mutual funds as we're going along, but that common theme, every time I write on the board, empower, not enable. And so who are we empowering today? That's my question to her. And it could be somebody at work, it could be somebody here, but I pick a theme for each of my clients, but they pick it. So when they pick that, that's the thing that carries the financial plan through. So again, a lot of psychology to that as well.
Yeah, I really, man, I appreciate the you going through that process with us too, because I think it really is important. Those are questions we try to ask our clients. You're reminding me that I probably don't ask that as often or as deep. I probably don't get down to the levels that I need to. It can be a little bit uncomfortable, right? That's the problem, right?
Great point.
It can get uncomfortable because you're starting to get pretty personal answers at some point if you keep asking.
I pretty much make everybody cry.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
I even get emotional
Sure.
hearing some of the stories because they hit home. So we all have a lot of commonality. It may not seem like it, but we do. And yeah, we usually tears are flowing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's driving me crazy, but there's a book I read many years, 20 some years ago, and then training that I actually subsequently took. A guy named Todd Duncan is kind of a guru in the mortgage space. At least he was many, many years ago. Still is involved in some things, but not quite as big of a name as he was years ago. But that's what he would teach in his training specifically was, asking those questions and why is that important, and then asking that why is that important, so you really can get to the thick of it. In sales specifically, right? A lot of the people watching this are salespeople. One of our biggest fears and concerns a lot of times is the price of what you're selling. And so, right, the price becomes way less important to the consumer of your product when you've broken through an emotional barrier for them. Especially because most other people aren't asking those questions that they're going to be talking to. And if they're not interested in answering them, they're probably not a good fit for you anyway. So no big deal, right?
Not a good fit.
And it's just you need to talk to more people that are. But getting to those deep answers, I think, can make a real difference and build a real connection between you and the client. And then they believe and wholeheartedly that you're there to not just be their financial advisor, but to really provide solutions to their long-term issues and problems. So,
do you mind if I give you a quick framework? Because you mentioned a lot of sales folks are listening. So this is applicable to any sales, whatever you're doing, widgets, real estate, money. So the first time you meet somebody, I would always ask, what brings you to my office today? What brings you into this space today?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. Always a what question. Because no offense to any why questions, but that's a little more confrontational. Because, why are you here today? Well, I want to learn how to make more money. Whereas if you say, what brings you into the office today, you're going to get a different answer. if you get used to that, you're going to find that it's very difficult for people not to tell you the truth because they can't get out of it because you're not used to answering questions as a kid. Like you don't get asked a lot of questions as a kid. You get told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So the funny thing is, if you just ask, what brings you to the office today, right? And again, substitute office for whatever they say. The next thing is you always want to bring the future into the present. So let's say you're in the parking lot. Let's say the meeting's an hour. You're in the parking lot. And you're like, man, I just had an awesome meeting with Matt. What? Again, another what question. Here's the second one. What do we have to accomplish in the next 60 minutes to make that a reality? They're telling you what they want.
Yeah.
Instead of you saying what kind of house you're looking for, you're in Best Buy, what kind of TV are you looking for? No matter what you do, like a TV, what brings you sort of, I'm looking for a TV. Great. What do you know about all the different TVs that are available today? Not much, right? So you can now get it very efficient to where you can see what they're looking for. To your point, if you meet all those criteria, the budget doesn't matter. Most people jump to that last question and say, what's your budget? Right? Which that's, to me, not a great question. Like, I don't ask, well, how much money do you have today to help, so I can help you invest?
Mm-hmm.
It became about me, not them.
Sure.
So if you just ask those two simple what questions, what brings you into the store today?
I think you
office,
also,
what can we do?
You also can, and I'm just envisioning myself with asking these questions in the order you're talking about, is you also can realize that you might be able to save yourself and the other person a great amount of time if what their answer to that question is nothing you can provide.
Exactly right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's always a challenge for me because I do a consultation with every single one of my clients. And I spend 30 minutes to an hour with them after my team has probably already spent multiple hours.
Sure.
And so I think, and all those people are getting paid, right? Mm-hmm. I don't get paid till it closes, but all my staff has to get paid for all the work they do regardless. And so realizing that if what they're looking for is not something we can provide, then earlier in the conversation, then we can save a whole lot of team members' hours that would be able to help. I think sometimes as salespeople, right, as much as I want to serve the client at a super high level, I also want to close the sale.
Of course.
Right. And so, but trying to close a sale on a client that is not my ideal client is a waste of time anyway.
No, inordinate waste.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't think a lot of times you don't think about it that way. So I love these questions, and I'm certainly going to look towards putting some of them in the order that you have now. I had a consultation with a client just 2 weeks ago, and thought I was doing an amazing job through this. They were so engaged and so involved, and we come to the end, and I asked the question I should have asked at the very beginning: have you talked to any other mortgage lenders? And they said, yes, we talked to our bank. And I said, great. Have you met with your bank? And they said, yes. And how was the meeting with them? It was actually very good. That's great. I'm glad that happened. Generally, most clients would say that their mortgage bank person is not spending that much time with them in most cases. Yeah. It's definitely not that experience, but they did have a good experience. And then I said, well, do they have anything specific to offer you that I didn't? Sure enough, there was a grant that bank had to offer that I would never be able to compete with.
Right.
And I felt really stupid because I just spent all this time when I didn't have a product that would give them what they were looking for based on that. Had I asked them that question at the beginning, I would have saved myself a lot of time and frustration.
Yeah, exactly.
And frankly, for them too, like they're spent all the time too. They didn't need to spend that time.
No. And I ask a similar question because people have probably worked with financial advisors or heard of something or read something. So my first question is, what have your experiences been with other financial advisors? I don't even say, have you?
Yeah.
I just say,
better question.
What's your experience been?
Yeah.
And they're going to be like, actually, I have never met with a financial advisor.
Or they have, and this is what it was.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
And so, again, that efficiency of condensing it down. And then they're like, well, what did you learn?
Yeah.
What did you like? What did you
not
like?
So a real estate agent watching this, right, would be a great question. What is your experience in working with real estate agents?
Yep.
And they're going to tell you. That's brilliant at the very beginning, so you can save yourself a lot of time.
Here's another.
You don't have to go in and necessarily answer the question immediately. Yes. In fact, you don't want to do that. You want to ask more questions.
You nailed it. That's where I was going to go next. So just a part B, this is my favorite one too, is a scaling question. So it's my favorite question to ask, like, what's your experience been with financial advice? Had one. They might say great, not great, don't care. I'm going to care, but I have to ask the subsequent question. So I say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being this person was the best financial advisor they've ever found in their entire life, or a 1 was like, I couldn't get out of that room fast enough and held onto my wallet as I was running out.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, and they'll say 6 or 7. They tend to do that somewhere in there. I said,
Sure.
well, you didn't say a 1. So why didn't you say a 1? What made you say a 6? And so they tell you why. And it's like pushy, tried to sell me a product, normal stuff, didn't listen to me, typical salespeople. So we all kind of know that. You're not going to hear a lot of variance in it. And that's not the important part of the question. The important part is the next part. So what does it take to move you from a 6 to a 10? That's all you have to ask.
Yep.
Now they're going to be like, I want weekly communication. I want knowing the best. So they're going to tell you everything you need to do as a salesperson to basically ingratiate them to you. It's the best.
But you don't have to do that, right? You can realize that's not what you want to do either and excuse yourself from the situation very
Exactly.
politely, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like I'm going to be the best fit for you.
Exactly.
Or I can absolutely do this, and here's how.
Yep. And so, for example, my words are, it's like, hey, we may have a problem here because the way I look at it, it should be a 7 or 8. And you say it's a 5. And the funny thing is, I'm not trying to argue with them. I'm using their words against them. It's like a karate move, not in a bad way,
Mm-hmm.
but they just said all these things and they're just like, and I say, well, it's probably not going to be a fit because I'm at a 7, you're at a 4. It's a great way if you feel, because we all like to help. We're usually high eyes, sanguine, like to talk, outgoing, friendly, psychologically. So it gives you a good out. So you don't have to slam the door on them. And the funny thing is someone will be like, well, we can get to a 6. We can get to a 6. And I was like, well, what does it take to get to a 6? To your point, they may say, I need somebody to lock up my credit cards. Every time I make a purchase of $5, I got to call them. And then you're sitting there going, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
But they're going to tell you the things they're going to do in the future. So you get a heads up as to what type of folks these are, and then you get to make a decision to work with them or not.
Yeah.
That whole conversation takes me about 5 minutes now. So if you practice those 3 what questions, and you can dig in real quick and just add that scaling question, you should be able in 15 minutes to say, is this person an ideal client for me? Am I willing to take on a pro bono case? Or do I have to shake hands and part ways as friends?
Sure.
And you let them know either way is fine. There's no wrong answer. If you engage, awesome. If we shake hands and part ways as friends, awesome. Don't care.
Yeah. As salespeople, again, we want naturally, and I can't say everyone by any means, because certainly I'm at a point now where I'm not. It's taken me a long time to realize it. In fact, where I don't necessarily want every client. In fact, I'm looking specifically for clients that want what we love to produce.
Yeah.
And because the last thing I want is a client, like we think we're knocking out of the park for them, and then they give us a bad review because we didn't do the one thing that they wanted that we don't do, and we're not going to do, right? And so, we do excuse ourselves from situations. I did one last night. There was a client that was just asking a million questions, which I'm more than happy to answer, but he wouldn't go through our process. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, we've given you a bunch of answers so far, and I'm happy to help you, but the next step in our process is this. If you'd like to do that, then we'd be happy to help you. If not, then maybe one of the other folks you're talking to is going to be a better fit for you.
Yep.
Because I don't want to beat my head against that wall. Why in the heck is I can't make this guy happy?
Right.
But we have a very specific process that we follow that delivers like raving fans every time when we follow the process. But if we don't follow the process, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
I want to ask you a question. Make sure that it's okay. I know that, because of your business, we've talked about this earlier, like I needed to provide a list of questions for you to make sure that they're appropriate. And I think this one will be. If it's not, don't hesitate to mention it. I'm curious, right? There's I feel like right now, and I literally dream about this most every night. I'm not kidding. I do. I can't stop thinking about it. It drives my daughter absolutely crazy because she hates it but she's got to realize that it's just our new reality is AI, right?
Oh yeah.
AI is such the speed at which things are moving now and it's just going to get that, it's just going more straight up, right? It's so freaky to look at it. I got served an ad the other day on Instagram about how you can hire AI callers, like basically have a call service that will call your leads for you, have a dialogue with people, and set appointments.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, wow, how cool would that be if you could actually make it? But I just am still, I don't think it's quite where I'm comfortable yet, where it sounds enough like 100% a human.
Sure.
Or because one of the things that on the call they mentioned is that you have, like, if somebody asks, "Are you an AI?" It has to tell you that they are, right? And so that's not what I want to talk about, but specifically, like in your world, where, like, do you utilize AI? If so, how do you utilize it? And where do you see that being the future of your industry?
Yeah. Again, another good question. There's a bunch of unknowns out there, as we all kind of know where it goes. So I would say strategy. So AI, one thing that AI is obviously really good at is factual based stuff. What's interesting about how I work, do you know what like a Rube Goldberg device is?
Mm-mm.
All right, so like basically it's like 20 things going on simultaneously to accomplish something seemingly relatively simple. So for example, if you're a coffee drinker, right, and you live on the second floor, you open up your door. The door then hits a tripwire that then releases like a bowling ball that goes down your stairs, that hits a pair of scissors, that hits another tripwire, that clicks the Keurig to actually turn on your coffee, right? Okay. So my brain thinks like that because you could be in a one-story house, it might not be enough gravity, blah, 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 all these different things simultaneously. AI cannot do that. So what's very interesting, don't know if it will ever be able to. If it does, I would say that's like a consciousness thing. We got a whole nother issue.
Yeah, sure.
Seen those movies, they don't end well.
Yeah,
so
that's
like,
right.
I don't like the endings of any of them. So, but for right now, though, you can get a factual based answer. But the problem is our tax code, which is about 90-ish thousand pages of gobbledygook, doesn't do that. So, for example, in the realtor space world, they say you should pay yourself a reasonable wage. It's literally in air quotes.
Yeah, sure.
If you're listening, you can't see I put in air quotes because that's the code. Well, how do you figure that out? Go ask AI that kind of question. And the interesting thing, it'll say, well, yeah, if you're within 13 to 18%, but it doesn't talk about gross or COGS or EBITDA or S Corp, C Corp, partnerships. If you ask it, you have to know what to ask it to then get it to prompt it. And it still doesn't give you the correct answer. Because the point is, it depends.
Sure.
And so in my world, every time somebody asks me a question about money, it depends. Because all the questions you're asking are beautiful. You think about the psychology, the human dynamics of stuff, people's personality, where they're at in life, all the emotions, opposites attract, business, variations in valuations, tariffs, inflation, taxes. How can AI pull all that stuff together when it changes so quickly? And it can't predict the future that well because it doesn't know. I can't either. I'm not a soothsayer.
Sure.
I don't have a crystal ball. So the interesting thing, it's very, very strategic. And so just like in the military, the enemy never does anything according to plan. Imagine that.
Yeah.
We have all these 5-paragraph operations orders of how we want everything to go down. As soon as you hit the SP or the line, where you start, everything goes to hell in a handbasket.
Sure.
Stuff breaks down, people get sick. It's like you can't plan. It's contingent.
Well, it's like Mike Tyson's quote, right? Everything's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
Love that quote. Well, you get punched in the face all the time because you don't know what's going to happen. Is Powell going to lower rates? What does the Fed say here? So it doesn't know. So being able to take all these different things that are important to you as a client in your life and put them together into some form of workable model. So I can't even call it a plan. Because a plan, yeah. Like I said, the second you leave your house, the plan blows up. Now, if you have a model, now you could sit there and run combinations and permutations as a contingency freak that I am to now limit risk.
Okay.
Mitigate as much of the risk as possible. So Bird flu with Obama never came. Same modeling applied to COVID with inflation. So the beauty thing is I was modeling stuff at State Street Bank with Fidelity during Obama's administration, and we modeled it. So when we knew COVID came in March and they shut everything down, it's pretty easy to see what was going to happen. You get my point. It's like, but if you don't know how to take all those things based on what somebody's business is or livelihood is, really hard to create some kind of roadmap about where to go because it was changing, heck, weekly.
Sure.
So that same philosophy, that's what Rube Goldberg devices think. That's how I think. And AI just can't do that. So it's great for research. It's great to like chat with. Placates a little too much, but because it wants to be nice. But yeah,
I've literally told because I use it a lot for like how I'm going to write something or how I'm going to say, and of course I've uploaded tons of stuff that it knows how I write, but I'll ask it for advice on things. And it's always, like you said, way too nice, right? So I've literally told it, I was like, okay, you are kissing my ass too much. I need you to be legitimate and real with me. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Pretend I'm you. And so it goes, okay, thanks for letting me know that. Here's what I would say then based on that. And it does a little bit of the, what do you call the sandwich, right?
Yep.
Where you give something nice and then something
Yep.
and then something nice.
Oreo clothes.
Yeah,
that's what I
yeah,
call it.
yeah.
Exactly.
But it's, at least it's giving me some more, because I found that it does that too much and I really want actual feedback.
Yeah. And that's where, just real quick, that's where I do agree that it's invaluable because they don't teach financial advising stuff anymore in high schools, colleges, MBA programs. And so to get basic knowledge to empower you, because I tend to go high level pretty quick just because I've been doing it a while. So I can give people a list of things that I will cover based on their situation and say, Grok, AI, whatever aggregate you use, put it in there and come educated. Because again, the more educated you are,
Sure,
the less, to your point.
Yeah, using AI is not cheating. I think a lot of people think it is. In fact, you're a fool if you don't.
I couldn't
Right?
agree more.
It's is the best tool available. This is where my daughter and I struggle with this because she's an artist, and so she believes that it's taking away people's jobs and tools and things. And the reality is, it's out of the box at this point, right? So you have to find a way to utilize it in a way that's going to help you. And I actually asked AI ChatGPT to explain my dilemma, and I said, I want you to help me get my daughter to understand this. And it was really interesting. It came back and said, it's amazing that your daughter has these feelings and that she cares enough, and that went on to talk about all these great attributes that she has. But what she what will help her understand is that this is just another tool that she can have. And it went back and explained, it was amazing, right? It went back and said, when the camera first came out, artists were really upset about it because this camera now could take this picture like that they had to draw out forever, or paint out forever. And now there's just another whole skill level in photographers and videographers, right? And so nobody looks at videographers or photographers like, God, these people are ruining, painting, right? It's ridiculous to think that.
Yeah.
And so that's what AI really is. It's just another tool, either for an artist or for a writer or for any type of person in business. And those that do not adapt to it will unfortunately find out a very rude awakening with their situation very quickly. Right? AI is not going to take your job, but somebody who knows it absolutely will.
Yeah.
Right.
And for me, to your point too, it helps with that education. Say, hey, go look up this basic concept, like Monte Carlo analysis. Understand it so that when you're looking at the one number I present, you have a basis for it. So there's no garbage in, garbage out, but more specifically how it applies to their situation.
Yeah.
So instead of using simple terms like conservative, aggressive, moderate, that doesn't mean anything. And it definitely means something different to every person you ask it to.
Yeah.
So if you can then say, here's a tool, Monte Carlo, and you understand how it works, now you could sit there and be like, okay, well, I'm not super aggressive, so I'm fine with a 70% result. And you could correlate that without having me teach it and spend the extra time. 100% tool, it's great to condense the education process.
It still scares the crap out of me every day.
Yeah.
I wish it didn't, but it does. Like, I think about it constantly. So I literally dream about this stuff. It's wild. I know you and I could talk much, much longer. I think we've been already going about 40 minutes or so.
Really? I'm flying. No, this is fun. Thanks. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
This is cool.
absolutely. I'm sure I'll have to have you back on again. We
Love
could go through some of these concepts even more. I'm already thinking about how I'm going to change my strategy in the conversations I have with business partners and clients about asking those questions to get, I think, to find out whether we're a good fit earlier in the conversation rather than a significantly amount of time later, right, where I've wasted a lot of time and energy and effort. And so, man, thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate you being here today. For those of you that have come in business, well, before I get there, is there anything else you wanted to mention before we wrap up today?
I just want to comment on one
Okay.
thing you said, which was really good. If you want to get good at asking what questions, because I think that's the most powerful thing, play games. I'm sure you have other brokers and people you advise, even spouses, partners, whatever. Just say, like, sell me a house, only asking what questions.
Okay.
And find out how quick. I bet you could sell me a house. So maybe we could do this next time. You could sell me a house by only asking me 3 what questions.
Okay.
That's the goal. And just so you know, I already kind of know the answer. You can pretty much do any sale in the entire world with 3 what questions.
All right. Well, there's a teaser for the next time.
Yep.
Excellent.
Play that game. It's a lot of fun. Might drive your significant other crazy, but it's fun. No statements. You can only ask what question.
Very good. Very good.
Thanks for having me.
No, man, thank you for being here. Thank you guys for being here, for listening or watching our Beyond the Closing Table podcast. I appreciate you being here. Please be sure and like, comment. We'd love for you to share this particular episode if anyone that you know that's either in sales or is wanting to learn more about kind of common stuff about maybe not so common things about financial planning and advising. Certainly, we'll have Matt's information there. Feel free to reach out to him, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.